You're welcome back. Well, the Nigerian National Bureau of Statistics placed the number of people living in poverty that was last year at 40%. That's about 83 million Nigerians, while the country's poverty profile for this year, 2021, has not been released yet. It's estimated that the number of people living under the poverty line will increase to 90 million. That's about 45% of the entire population. Well, that sounds really worrying. But let's get the perspective of Chukwuka Moye. He is a social innovator and founder of AGCare Foundation to see how he sees these figures and what he thinks about it. Good to speak for you, Chukwuka. Thank you so much for being a part of the show this morning.
Good morning, Ine.
Good morning, and compliments of the season.
Compliments of the season to you.
So we get the figures from the NBS, well, the most reliable for Nigeria. From your perspective, how good or bad is the situation, the poverty situation in the country?
How good or bad? Okay. Maybe what I'll do a bit is just to unpack that figure for a second. I think that figure must have come from, the $1.9 that World Bank has sort of defined, to measure poverty, right? Yeah. The reality is that if we use 1.9, dollars, it comes to something around over 100 million people. Now, the reason why it is an alarming figure is not just because of the number itself, it's because of the rate at which it is further declining. It's a different thing if we said it was 100 million and we are getting out of poverty on a daily basis. On the contrary, we're not. We're actually adding to this poverty pool by 4.4 people per minute. That's why it's a crisis. Now, let's talk about or define poverty for a minute. Most times when we talk about poverty in the context of, okay, what can people afford to pay for? What can people afford to do for their daily living? That's good on the one hand, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about 100 million people. But there's another angle to this. If you're trying to get out of poverty, the reality is that in most parts of the world, those that drive transformation of any nation, there are two classes. One, the professional class, and two, the political class. Now, I'll put the political class on the side for a minute and talk about professionals. The reality today is that even the professional class is disoriented and disturbed by a lot of the things happening today. So you hear a lot of people saying they are leaving, right? People traveling out. Plan B. Plan B is a common thing that I hear now. Now, if those that are supposed to help the other segment get out of poverty are also leaving, the question now comes to who will then solve this problem, right? That's for me the bigger concern, because you're saying, okay, we're adding to this poverty pool. However, those that are equipped, educated, they have the skill sets, they have the capabilities to contribute and support and help those that don't have the capacity are giving up. Then where will the help come from? Then you have to go back to the political class and say, okay, the leaders. Yeah, but that's a conversation for another day, because I want us to focus on poverty and economics of it.
Okay, so there's this notion that poor access to education is a major cause of the increasing poverty number in the country. So it will also be interesting to know what we mean by this education, because you have some Asian countries, they don't do a lot of English, and yet they do a lot of innovation, and India, you talk about medical, so it will be interesting to not just look at it and say, because people go to school and graduate and don't get jobs or don't create jobs. So it will be interesting to balance when we say, is it because of lack of education out-of-school children that this poverty is increasing?
So it's a combination of different types of education. Now, let's talk about your out-of-school children. The figure is what? About 10.5 million?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 10.5 million. And I hope you realize that what we're referring to is formal education.
Yes, formal.
We haven't factored in things like mentoring, coaching. We've not factored in things like role modeling and the effect of those things and the other trainings that you give at home. Now, when you factor in all these different things, 10 million is a small figure. I would formally say that we are in crisis as a nation.
So sorry to disrupt you.
Because
are you agreeing with the fact that lack of access to education or education is a major factor increasing the poverty line?
Lack of it
okay.
is contributing to this increase in poverty. You cannot get out of poverty without educating your people. It's a fact. And it's something that has to be looked at, it has to be tackled, and frankly speaking, it has to be, tackled with radical solutions. I don't think your conventional and traditional educational frameworks and recommendations are going to work.
What do you mean by radical?
I'll give you a simple example. Today, you have 100 million people in poverty, but I can tell you for free that 100 million people have mobile phones. I can tell you for free that 100 million people get on social media. 100 million people are in search of information. There's a reason why fintechs have potential. There's a reason why edtech has potential. When you have a blossoming youthful population, it is important that you begin to come up with solutions that are tailor-made for them. When I say radical, it's because of that volume, that number of people. Your brick-and-mortar educational solutions cannot address this gap. That's what I mean by radical. You have to start to think, okay, what can we do to easily ramp up the kind of information that we push out to the youth?
Can we say this is captured in the federal government development plan, the national development plan?
So the national development plan is good. My comments are twofold about the plan. Number one is it's all going to boil down to execution. Personally, it's not radical enough, but I recognize that, you have to start from somewhere. So even if we start with that, and it is well, will I say, managed, that whole process of implementing it, I think we'll be fine if it can be implemented. However, with the rate at which we're growing, with the rate at which the youth segment is growing, with the rate at which poverty is increasing, I don't see how a normal, traditional process will catch up. That's just my own concern.
Okay, so the president had said that Nigeria needs 348.1 trillion naira to achieve the 5-year national plan. Now, once we mention money, that brings another picture to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it going to come from? Already we have so much, the debt profile has formed a lot of conversation. Our oil, we're not even producing as much. We can't even meet up with the quota that we're supposed to. We're talking of diversifying the economy. We don't see a lot of effort. So when the president mentions this, do you see these being achievable? 348.1 trillion naira.
It's a tough.
Or is it just?
It's difficult. Mm-hmm. It's difficult. And that's why I said implementation of the plan is now the concern. What I think might be more practical, mm-hmm. But may not be the popular thing that people want to hear is that, we phase, these plans. And quite frankly, You'll be amazed what Nigeria would become if we made education a priority. You'll be amazed how people who have nothing but have the minds, have the intellect, will create value out of any, out of nothing. There's a reason why I said earlier, whether it's blockchain, whether it is, the fintechs, whether, why is it that somehow when Nigerians get their hands into these sort of areas, that things thrive? They're informed, they're educated about it. So for me, if I had the opportunity, for instance, to, empower a lot of young people, I would just say, you know what, educate all of them.
Okay, so paint a reality picture here, because you're back to the education thing. So for you, I think it's education.
Is a big deal for me.
So,
it's a big deal.
And you talked about it being radical, not the brick and mortar kind of thing. Paint a picture here. If you had the powers, what would you do? How would you approach it? Would you have a center where anybody's admitted? Would you have people come to train? Just paint a reality picture.
So you will have a cocktail of education delivery solutions, but one of it will be that there's some sort of open, digital-based platform where people are learning, and they're learning, and then they get certified for some reason, right? So you're building an economic plan. What I'm saying is that instead of your degree certificate, can I go through a program online? And when I come out with a degree, a certificate from that online program, I will get a job, for instance. If I would, guess what will happen naturally? Everybody will go online.
But do we have the infrastructure? I mean, when last year, especially at the climax of COVID, when we said schools should go online, we know the challenges that we face with data, with power, high costs and all that.
Yes, but remember that it's the same problem we have with fintechs and mobile money. But guess what we did? We came up with agency banking. We came up with ways in which those that do not have data can come and access data. My point is, the moment you create a policy, a direction, a lot of value will gravitate towards it. People will start to come up with solutions in that direction. Right now, our thinking is still not in that direction. We're still thinking brick and mortar. We're talking about 100 million people. You can't solve that with old, traditional ways. We must think differently. We must think radically. We must start thinking digitally.
That's why we have youthful minds like you will. We have to stop there. Thank you so much. We have to stop there. Chukamoye, social innovator. We can see the social innovation there. And founder of AGCare Foundation. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. And we do believe this is a platform that is open, and the government's follow-up and ideas, shared here would also make a difference, especially as we get into the new year. So we're not talking about the same thing over and over again. Thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your holiday.
All right, then. Have a good one.